is Jacob Rachwal. I'm a librarian at the Central Library in Buffalo, and I'm here today for another edition of Cooking with a Librarian. Today we're going to do something different. We're not necessarily cooking, we're brewing. We're going to be making Kombucha Tea, which is basically a fermented iced tea. And it has lots of naturally occurring probiotics, and it's very healthy for you to drink. We're going to take our recipe from this cookbook, which you can get at any library basically. It's called Delicious Probiotic Drinks, 75 Recipes for Kombucha, Kefir, Ginger Beer, and Other Naturally Fermented Drinks by Julia Mueller. So it's a great book. There's lots of very interesting recipes here. Like I said, it's a fermented iced tea. So some people think it tastes like sparkling apple juice. Some people think it still tastes like iced tea. It's fermented, so given a little time, it's going to veer towards vinegar, basically. And it's all done by a scoby, and that's like a mushroom type thing that you'll see shortly, that we basically put on top of the iced tea, which is basically just a cake of yeast, essentially. It's naturally occurring yeast within the drink, and it just basically keeps reproducing itself. So let's check out the recipe now and show you how you can make it at home. So let's get started. And here are our simple batch of ingredients. We have about 8 cups of boiling water. We're going to use 7 tea bags. We need, of course, a clean glass jar, a lid for the jar, and some coffee filters to go over that. And of course, our reserve kombucha scoby. And we're also going to need 1/2 cup of sugar. So we're going to get started by pouring in the sugar to our empty container. And into that, we're going to add 5 tea bags. And we just drop them in. And into that, we're going to fill this with our boiling water. Not quite all the way up, and then we'll let this sit for about an hour to allow the tea to brew, and we'll come back and see it when it's ready. Now we're back, and we have our tea, which has cooled. I took the tea bags out of it, but as you can see, we've got a nice dark brew here. The next thing we do is we take our reserve mushroom and the liquid that's inside of it, and just basically place it on top of the tea. And as you can see, it floats right to the top. And we're going to also add reserve liquid from the last time we brewed. And there we have it. It's mixing in. It's going to settle. And basically we'll check on this in about a week and see how it did. Next thing we're going to do is just put a lid on it. We're using a coffee filter instead of a regular lid, so it can breathe during the course of its process. And like I said, we'll be back. Alright, this is our finished product. At first glance, it might be a little creepy looking, but it's actually, this came out very nicely. You can see we've got some stringiness here, as well as some brown discoloration. That's fine. That just means that the yeast is growing and it's processing nicely. Now that we're done, we need to bottle it, basically. So the first thing you want to do is open up our jar. And I should note my hands are washed because we don't want to introduce any bad bacteria here. But the first thing we want to do is remove the scoby. And let's see. Now, let me just show you what it looks like. It's has many different layers, as you can see, and you could share a scoby just by peeling off a layer. This one came off here. And you could give this to somebody and they could brew their own kombucha. The next thing we're going to do is take about a half a cup of the tea and pour it in, reserve for our next batch, and we'll put that aside. Right, so I will just be reusing a bottle that I had purchased originally, and basically what we're going to do is just fill a jar. As you can see, it's quite fizzy. We've got some fermentation, which has caused some fizziness in the bottle. And we're going to just put the lid on it and let this sit for 2 days for a secondary fermentation, and we'll come back in 2 days to see how it works out. We are back. Our kombucha has fermented for another 2 days where we left off, and this is essentially what we have left over. As you might recall, when we started the video, I told you it kind of has a vinegary flavor if it ferments for long enough, and it's not really something that I like to drink. That's why I have my mother here who's going to taste test it for me. She's usually the one who I make it for. So go ahead.
He does a really good job.
Okay, go ahead and describe what the flavor is like. I said like a sparkling iced tea.
That's exactly what it is, and it's very refreshing.
Maybe hints of apple too, like sparkling apple cider. No?
It's got a taste of its, and I don't taste vinegar. Some of them, maybe they do, but I don't taste vinegar. This is it's a little bit on the sweeter side, but it's fizzy. It's really good. It's refreshing.
Well, there you have it. As always, there will be the recipe in the description below. And thank you for joining us again for another edition of Cooking with a Librarian.